Welcome back to the Life of People podcast. If you're new to the show, this podcast is about finding, building, rebuilding, and reimagining community. My hope is that these conversations encourage you in your reach for connection and community wherever you find yourself. In this episode, I talk with Gals at Brunch founder, Tiffany Accardi. Tiffany has done the reps to build community in her own life and has a special gift for welcoming others into shared spaces for connection and friendship. She is the real deal, and I know you'll be inspired by her story and her courage to embrace change and community along the way. As always, I value your feedback and your insight into what community looks like for you. So feel free to DM me, email me, take our survey, send up a flare, do whatever you got to do, but please reach out. Also, do me a favor and subscribe to the Life of People podcast. It helps others find the show, just like you. Okay. And sweet. Okay, and if I'm looking down, it's because I have notes here, and Perfect. That's the only reason you see me looking down. That's why. Cool. All right. Yay! Welcome back to Life with People. I'm here with Tiffany Accardi. Tiffany and I met in LA several years ago, and it's really fun reconnecting with you, Tiffany. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today. For those of you that don't know, Tiffany has built community wherever she goes. She started a group called Gals at Brunch, and it has grown to over 200,000 women. And this actually might be old stats.
Yeah, we're about like 250,000.
250,000 women, not 155 cities. How many cities?
We're in 225.
Okay. Yeah. So let me just cross this out because I have some old notes here. So 250K women, 225 cities, and about 33 nations?
Yes.
Okay. So that's gone beyond we just brunched together to it's a movement of sorts, right? Yeah. And Tiffany also works with entrepreneurs as a community strategist and runs retreats in Italy, of all places. Like, no big deal. So Tiffany just bleeds community, and I'm excited to have you, Tiffany, on the podcast. And so now that I've kind of queued you up a little, I'd love for you to share fill in the gaps for me. What parts of your phenomenal bio did I just completely miss out on?
You did a great job. You got it covered. Yeah. It's kind of funny at this season of life because you always feel like, gosh, I feel like I've lived 100 lives. and all of it just feels like yesterday. But as Teresa said, Gals at Brunch actually turns 11 years old this month, which is wild.
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Happy birthday, GTB. I feel like I raised a baby. Like, awesome. She can now walk on her own a little bit more and, whatnot. And it's, wild to think about kind of dedicating yourself to something like that for as long as I have. But it's been really fun and wild and lots of lessons to learn about it along the way. And then, I always say I accidentally stumbled into the entrepreneur world 5 years ago because of what I did with Gals at Brunch. I've worked in nonprofit, ministry, church life leading up to that. And now I get to work with entrepreneurs and helping them build community. And I feel like as I've been doing this for 11 years, it's been really interesting because I feel like we talk about it a lot more nowadays than we did 11 years ago. Sure. But I feel like I have a lot of revelation around community and relational equity and relational intimacy that I feel like we lack a lot today in today's day and age when people are more lonelier than ever, but then not willing to flex the relational muscles necessarily to what it means to stay in community or be in community. And so clearly I'm really passionate about all things community. So there's that. And I spend part of my year in Italy and do lots of fun things.
I love that you just said we're in a season of time where people are lonelier than ever and they are longing for connection more than ever. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but they're unwilling to do the reps, right? They're unwilling to exercise the muscle of how do you build community in your life? And really, when I say build community, I mean, like, how do you have a deep relational connection with someone that's life-giving and meaningful and carries you through the long haul, right? Yeah. And how do you continue to invest in that and repair when it's broken? How do you do all the things, right, that keep you in community? Yeah, I love that you called that out because it's almost like we have this wound that we could fix if we just cleaned it and got a band-aid,
Fair
but
enough.
we're kind of like, let's let it just fester here. And
Yep,
wounds are probably the wrong, like that's a weird word picture for it, but
but it's true. Yeah.
it's like one of those things where it's like you sometimes you know what you need to do and you just don't do it, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
um, that's awesome. I know Gals at Brunch, like you said, it's 11 years old, and now you feel like people are talking about community more than ever. I feel like COVID was a huge wake up call for us all, right? It was, and it didn't create the loneliness epidemic, it just uncovered it. I
Exactly.
I don't
Exacerbated
think,
it.
I think it was there already.
It was.
Obviously, our culture is getting more individualized. Our digital smartphones, everything is keeping us from in-person real life connection with each other. It's keeping us from having deeper conversations around the dinner table. It's keeping us from all the things, right? So and culture is becoming more transient. So we have all of these things that are happening that are creating this loneliness epidemic. But COVID kind of like ripped the blanket off and showed us really where we were at,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah.
so that was going on. But I think what's interesting about Gals at Brunch in particular is when you started that, the Instagram meetup, if you will, wasn't a thing. Like now I can hop on Instagram and I'm like, run clubs in Ventura and I can find five
Yes.
or paddleboard, like any, whatever you want
Not
to do,
wild.
right? Isn't
Yeah.
it wild? But that wasn't the case when you started Gals at Brunch.
Not at
And
all.
so I'm curious I mean, there's so many things I want to talk about. So I want to get back to your backstory at some point, but rolling with this,
Yeah.
with Gals at Brunch, what made you even think through? Like, what did you do? One, why did you start it? Give us some backstory and what made you think, I think brunch and I think I'll invite people. And what did you use to do
For
the
sure.
clarion call, if you will?
So I used to work in higher ed, and my job used to move me to every 2 years. So I moved to Denver, and that was kind of
Okay.
my first cross country move. And I remember going through probably one of the hardest seasons of my life of just like for the first time, a new job transition, not knowing anyone in a brand new city, and then kind of doing what you know how to do. Okay, and let me go find a local church and let me go connect and whatnot, and still feeling like I'm flailing my arms over here, going, does anyone see me? And whatnot. And it probably took me close to 2 years to feel like I had any semblance of community. And I don't think anyone talks about that in a
Yeah.
season of transition,
Mhm.
because there's so many other things that are going on. You're grasping for your identity and who you were. You're trying to fit in, trying to figure
Mhm.
out who you are in this new evolution and season of life. And it was so challenging. And I ended up having an amazing group of friends in Denver. But then I found out my work was moving me to Virginia, and I was like, I cannot go through another 2 years of trying to find friends in a brand new city. So I actually, before I even moved, I joined a classified group on Facebook.
Okay.
And again, because like you said, now you can type in anything and find something most likely in your
Right.
city. But that wasn't back then. So it was like the classifieds buy, sell, trade in Hampton Roads.
Okay.
And I literally
Buy,
was
sell,
like,
trade. That's awesome.
I know that this group isn't for this, but I'm moving to the Hampton Roads. I'm 28 years old, and I don't know anyone, and would anyone be open to grabbing brunch? And so I actually
You
drove.
literally just posted it in the buy sell trade group.
Yes. And
Yes,
I was
I
like,
feel like I want to give you a hug. Amazing.
I was desperate. I was like, I don't know anyone. And yeah, I did it. And I was looking to connect with other women. And so a bunch of women were like, yeah, that sounds great. So I drove into town. I went to the brunch restaurant 2 hours before the first Saturday. I literally lived in Virginia Beach, and over 30 women showed up, and everyone was like, this is the best thing ever. Are we going to do this? Like every single month. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it every single month. And so it just kind of turned into that. And the clarion call was just invite a friend. So every single
Wow.
time we brunch, it was like, hey, if you know someone that would benefit from this community. So we didn't have Instagram, we weren't on Facebook. It was literally invite a friend. And we ended up with over 1,200 people within the first 12 months of
Wow.
Gals at Brunch in Virginia Beach. And even then, people are like, what are you doing with this? And I'm like, I just love making friends, and I love clearly I love helping people make friends. This is such a fun hobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never knowing what I was getting myself into, and committing myself to something 11 years later. But yeah, that's kind of how it just started, and yeah, and went from there.
Hmm. That's incredible. I didn't know all of the details of the backstory. That's really, really cool. Um,
It makes me
I,
laugh because I've done church plans and things like that, and you're like barely getting 20 people in the door. And I'm like,
right.
all you had to do is invite people to brunch, you guys.
Would have been so much easier for you.
So much
Um,
easier.
so 1,200 people in 12 months. And I think, again, that just goes to show that you were hitting such a felt need for people too, right? I think we take for granted that people are actually looking for outlets for community and to um, really have space to go deeper and to meet new people and to rub shoulders with people they would never met and all that, you
Exactly.
know?
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I want to go back real quick to you saying that it took you 2 years because I feel like that is very common. I actually say that to people when they're getting ready to move. I go, okay, brace yourself. It's probably going to take you about 2 years to get your feet under you. And every time I've moved, it's felt that way. And each time I've done it, I have a different perspective because you know from the past that you're going to get through it. It's but because it just takes that long to get relational equity with people to have
Yeah.
history, right?
Yeah.
Because you, for me at least, every time it's like you make new friends, you might connect, you might be doing really good, and then a little while in, you just kind of realize like, oh shoot, like we don't actually have history. We don't know each other that well. I don't know if I can really that equity just isn't there yet,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
and I'm curious. So for me, I think it takes 2 years. One, because you're just trying to figure out who your people are first off, and then you're trying to build some history with them. But
Yeah.
I'm curious from your perspective, like why 2 years?
Yeah, so typically people go like, who's the GTB demographic? And I typically say it's women in transition. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because some of those transitions compound, whether, like, say you just got married and you're like, wait a second, who am I outside of this relationship? Or you just went through a breakup
Sure.
and you realize, oh my gosh, my whole group was just surrounded by people I know. And then say that you just moved to a brand new city and start a new job, and now you're going through two transitions at once. And we grasp to those identities of who we are in those various relationships, whether it's with your employment, whether it's with another person, or whatever the case may be. And it's interesting because we grow up in systems that we don't realize that we grew up in. When you grow up,
Mm,
you're in a family unit. You then go to school. You're grafted into the same classes. You know who your teacher is that summer.
yeah.
Kind of, you go around that. Even college, you have this like
Yeah.
built-in system where all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, what do you mean? I live 5 minutes from my best friend across the hall. It's all built in for you.
Yeah.
And then as soon as those pieces are removed, it's like we're jello. We don't have a bone structure, we don't have systems or rhythms, and it's almost like we're going back to being in our adolescence where you're having to learn how to talk again, learning what your voice sounds like, you're learning how to walk again, and
Mm,
you're really grasping for who am I now, that one of these or several of these things have now been removed, and depending
sure.
on what that transition looks like, it's going to be in greater detail. I mean, even moving back to San Diego, where I'm originally from, it still took me close to 2 years because so much I'd been gone for 7 years at that point. And so much of life has changed. People had babies, people moved to Temecula, only an hour away, but that changed everything,
That's a big
like
hour, actually.
it's a big hour, so just things like that. You have to rebuild the muscle, and it's like we're spoon fed it. And so then we don't realize that it's actually a muscle that we have to work out and flex
Mhm,
to get back into the grasps of it.
mhm,
So yeah,
mhm.
it's definitely wild.
That's actually I have never heard it explained that way before, and it's such good imagery because, um, yeah, it's almost like you got to like put yourself back together. And I just want to say this for those that are listening. You don't have to be ashamed if you're in the jello season, right? Everybody has the jello season.
Yep.
Everybody has transitions. I love that you talked about all the different kinds of transitions, like getting married, getting a new job, moving, having a baby, all of these things that are happening in our lives, like getting married. Like a lot of times we only think about the really wonderful, exciting parts of that. We don't think about the fact that you're like, oh my gosh, who am I now? And that
Yeah.
happens, right? Even with, I remember being really surprised when I graduated high school, feeling this weird sense of sadness
Yeah.
because it wasn't just sadness like, oh, I'm going to leave all my friends. It was like this phase of my life is over. So it's kind of like I think sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to have those jello moments where it's like, oh, I need to rebuild again. I need to exercise this muscle. I didn't do anything wrong.
Nothing. Yeah.
I transitioned.
You
And
transition.
so things are different now. And I do have to get to know myself. And I do have to know, who am I in this season? Who am I to others? Like, what gifts do I bring to the table now? It's different than it was before. Like,
Yeah.
so I think that's really a beautiful way to say it.
Yeah, it almost brings tears to my eyes because I think that if we looked at it like an invitation of who do we get to be in this
Mm,
season, like who am I in this, it just reshapes it because there's so much shame with it. I
yeah.
remember my first move, I was so ashamed and thinking, what's wrong with me? I must be the
Hmm.
problem. Like I can't
Right.
relationally connect with all these people,
Hmm.
and whatnot. But whereas it's more so an invitation of who am I becoming in this season and where am I going, and who do I get to connect
Right.
with? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Flipping the script to have it be a little bit more of an adventure
Yes.
than I'm in the dark cave or like the
Yeah.
wilderness, I
Is
guess,
this
of
ever
sorts.
gonna
Like,
end? Yeah.
yeah. And I catch myself doing that in other areas of my life too. It's like this thing ended. And instead, I was just talking to a good friend about this today, actually. I was like, I am trying to figure out why my tendency is to look back instead of look forward. And
Right.
like, really the biggest gift we can give ourselves is to be present, right?
Yeah.
But as far as when you're trying to build community or looking for things or looking for friends or maybe you're looking for a relationship, whatever, it's
You just
like
have
it's easy
evidence.
to look back and be like, well, in the
Yeah.
last city I had this,
Yeah.
instead of being like, well, what do I get to discover now?
Yeah.
And what do I get to who do I get to meet and how will they change my life? And I've every time I've moved or transitioned, it takes a while, but some of the most incredible people have come into my life. I was telling a good friend the other day, I was like, I might not have started a family yet, might not be married yet, but I've been so rich in my friendships. And it's such a gift. It's such a gift. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would be lost if that was like, I mean, Jesus too, right? But
Yes. Who's
he's a
all the
friend.
lost.
Uh, amazing. With that, one thing you say on the Gals at Brunch website is that you are envisioning a world where loneliness ceases to exist. I'm curious if you could just say more about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think when I started Gals at Brunch, it was very selfish. I just want to find friends,
Okay, yeah,
like is
yeah.
anyone, and I didn't have a vision for it. And I think in doing so, you just realize how accessible community really can be.
Mm,
So there's not really an excuse that there wouldn't be things that exist in every place around the world that people could be connected to and become known and be seen. And
yeah.
there's so much around dignity and humanity within it. And I think some of the, I don't know what word I would put here, but some of the cautious tale maybe would be that we tend to box ourselves in as a society.
Okay.
Okay, like if you're faith-based, you'd go here. If you like
Sure.
sports, you go here.
Right.
But there's not many places that are just teaching you to love a neighbor and be a neighbor and, gather
Mhm.
people around from different perspectives and belief
Sure.
systems and
Yeah.
places like that. And so I think as I've done Gals at Brunch and as I've survived two political campaigns running a global community movement, you just realize how attuned we are to cancel culture and like, oh, you don't believe the same way that I do. Okay, like throw the
Mm,
hand up and
yeah.
whatnot. And it's like, well, wait a second. Did you not forget that that person's a human as well, too? That person
Yeah.
needs to eat and drink just like you, like
Mm,
regardless of the things. And so I feel like the table's the great equalizer, if you will, of bringing us back together, knitting us back together in who we are just as humanity, as
mhm,
um, God's creation. And that's really what I'm trying to establish, I think, in creating systems and rhythms where people can easily gather in every place around the world, regardless of what their socioeconomic stance, what they believe, what, all the things within it. And I can't do it by myself. And so I think that's kind of the atmospheric charge to the world of like, hey, we all have a responsibility in doing this. We're all created for community, and so let's get outside of our bubbles, if you will, and start to invite people to the table. Just, I
mhm,
mean, if anything, if you could remind somebody what their worth is, doesn't that make
mhm.
it worth it? And not
Yeah.
only that, the longer explanation that I'll try and say within a bite is it's who do you get to become in extending that invitation, because I don't think we can fulfill our destiny if we don't step into community. And
Mhm.
but it's a little bit of a longer curve result, or longer ROI, if you will, because you don't necessarily realize the giftings or the talents that you're walking in until you're able to look at someone across the table and go, "Oh, I've been there too. Don't
Mhm.
worry, you'll get through it as well." And they look
Yeah.
at you and go, "What are you talking about? Do you understand what you just said?" And you go, "No. Isn't that just common sense? Everyone knows
Yeah, yeah,
this."
yeah.
And they go, "No. What you just said is going to help me exponentially." And then you all of a sudden realize that's something that I carry. Like that
Mm,
only gets to happen in a community function
yeah.
as people are pulling on your gifting and
Mhm.
allowing that to come to purpose. And so
Mhm.
again, like it's kind of like when you see those memes of like, what do people think that you do? And then what your mom thinks that you do. And then you're like, what I really do is, trying to help people step into greater levels of identity and wholeness that
Mhm.
happens through community. And so that makes pursuing the mission even that much more worth it
Mhm.
in that sense.
hmm No, that's really good. I remember reading as well on your website something along the lines, I'm going to paraphrase, I think the heart behind it is you come to the table and you kind of take off all of your titles and hats, right? And you allow community to pull out what you carry, right? So it's like you come with who you are, and that, also includes your skills that are probably the reason you got the title that you have that you're putting down for a second to sit at this table.
Yeah.
But it's who you are and what you have lived through and what you have mined in your own heart and soul that
Yeah.
gets to come out and gets to be this beautiful expression of God to other people, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like he made us and we're on a journey and we get to present who we are to those around us.
Yeah.
And like you said, it is an invitation. And I think if we can see other people as um, gifts that we get to learn from and we can see ourselves. I think that's the worth part, right? Is like it's kind of where I don't know why I'm using this language so much in this particular conversation, but um I think it's almost challenging to be like, well, I am not in a narcissistic way, but in a, like God, I get to be a gift and a blessing, right? I get
Yeah.
to come and I get to be who I am. And if I just come and I'm unashamedly myself,
Yeah.
that is a gift I can give to other people because
Well,
I am wanting to show up and respond to them being themselves, right? I don't
exactly.
know.
Well,
So,
that's exactly what happens. That's what it's
mhm,
like, by you showing up, you're acknowledging that someone else is worthy of having a spot at the table. And
right,
that's the paradigm shift that we don't necessarily get. And like you said, we're almost taught sometimes, well, I'm the gift, in this narcissism bubble type
right,
thing. But it's actually denying yourself a spot at the table because you disqualify yourself from whatever life's happening. I need to have my life more together. I don't
sure,
know what I'm doing. I don't know how to show up. You're actually denying people the gift of your essence and identity of who you carry. And I don't think that people understand that, because, like I said earlier in the conversation, we all desire community.
hmm
But then when it takes the relational muscles of it, it's easier to stay at home sometimes. You're like, okay, why did I sign up to brunch? I just want to sleep in and do that.
right,
But then people are missing out on the gift of who you are. And I think we don't understand that. Sometimes it almost feels like so much work. You're like, well, what about if I don't want to be pulled on this morning, or
sure,
whatever the case is? But sometimes we need it,
for
like
sure, for
it's why
sure.
when you go, why don't I do this more? It's like when you go to the gym, you're like, oh, I did not want to go today, but I'm so glad I did because now I feel
Mhm.
better.
hmm Yeah, no, for sure. When I first moved to the area that I live in now, it took me a while to, I was always like a couple years, find your people, right? And I remember going to this one running group where it was I mean, most people were about 10 years older than me, which was okay. It was fine, but I wasn't really finding peers or friends. But I remember there's like 3 or 4 times where I went and afterwards I still went to the hangout afterwards, like wherever it
Good
was.
job. Good
And
job.
and each time I was like, I'm here to hear someone's story and to be enriched by their life and to wonder at the story of another, right? Like, what can I learn from this person? And how can I get curious? How can I ask questions and all that kind of stuff? And every time I walked away and I was like, wow, I was like, that's not going to be my bestie, but I'm encouraged. I've learned something.
Yeah.
I've not wasted an evening.
No.
So it's good. Um, I think we underestimate the power of even those connections that that might not turn into long-term friendships.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we put pressure on ourselves to find our people and to discount. I've talked to a lot of my parent friends about this. The fact that you become friends with people in the rider line or at the kids' pickup line, your conversations are probably going as deep as what time's your kids' baseball practice?
Yeah.
Or hey, like, can we do a play date or whatever? Your conversations probably aren't going necessarily super deep, but the consistent showing up creates
Equity.
the
Yeah.
equity in the
Yep.
history, right? I know some friends who moved and they were like, we were really surprised. All the parents that we talked to at pickup were all really sad. And we're like, we've never hung out outside of this 20-minute time zone, like
Yeah.
during pickup. And they're all super sad. And it's like, well, because you saw them
The
every day, 5 days
repetition.
a week.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah.
like compounds. And so, anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on people coming to gals at brunch events. And I
mhm,
always have to emphasize we're not here to entertain you. We're not something because you're bored, type thing. We're
right.
actually helping you establish rhythms that will ultimately create relational equity. And I think that's the most challenging thing to do because I live in San Diego. So there's not a lack of things to do. They're
Right.
like, where do I go, type thing. But where's the
You're in
place?
the fun zone.
Exactly. Where are you going to become known and seen
Right.
versus being entertained?
That's good. Where are you going to become known and seen versus being entertained?
Yeah.
Because that's a cultural thing, right? We tend to chase entertainment, whether or not we call it that,
Yeah.
right? Like, um, we chase comfort, we chase
Yeah.
entertainment, we chase instant gratification.
Yes.
And so it's like, how do I take a step back and go, what's the thing deep down that I'm really wanting? And it's not actually a quick hit,
Yeah.
right? And so that's really, really good. Um, You had said we were talking about loneliness and things, and I think you are really doing a good job expressing how we can kind of overcome some of these hurdles, like digital age, transient culture, all this kind of stuff. You do say there's one truth: the cure for loneliness isn't found; it's built. And I'm curious if we were to take up this vision to eradicate loneliness and to build something that would basically slap loneliness in the face. I don't know what else to say. But where would I even start? What would you tell me to do?
Yeah, I feel like we make it more cumbersome than it actually is
Mhm.
because I live in a studio in San Diego. So I'm always like, it's too small to have people over. But that's exactly where it starts. Invite people over for a shared meal because in your places that you perceive as less than perfect or your circumstances are less than perfect, it actually creates the vulnerability that are going to allow people to connect with you deeper. The things that you perceive are weaknesses in this season or things that you would like to get a better handle on ultimately create a false sense of security and don't allow connection to happen sometimes in the measure that you're desiring because it's almost like we're not willing to be less than perfect. And I think in this
Mhm.
digital age, it's like we've all of a sudden made perfection the goal. Like, oh my
Okay.
gosh,
Yeah,
like I need to add a filter on this photo or this video,
sure.
or oh my gosh, I need to do this, this, and this before I can show up. And it's the biggest lie that we've come into agreement with. And so the first way that you can break it is to actually take steps to break out of that bubble, which if it's your apartment's too tiny or messy, then it's a perfect opportunity to break the barrier of ask someone over for a cup of coffee, and
Hmm.
then create the rhythm from it and what that looks like. I always say that out of our greatest disappointment and pain is oftentimes our greatest victory. And I think um it's like allowing people into those spaces. So if you're feeling unknown, if you're feeling disappointed in something else, the fact of the matter is that there's probably other people that are in that same boat. It's just that nobody has been willing to acknowledge it and go, hey, are other people wanting to connect in this way or this measure? But I think that's the hardest part, again, in society or culturally.
Sure.
Um, is that we're professional likers on social media,
Yeah.
but then there's still the lack of like connection. I can be friends with my person from third grade and know everything that's going on in her life, but then we don't have the relational equity
Yeah.
and vulnerability. And so I think we have to start to get off the platforms and start to actually create space and rhythms that are going to do that. And so I think you have to kind of ask yourself that question of what does that look like for me in this season of life? and
Mhm.
what can I commit to? And so does
Mhm.
that look like something weekly that you're just going to put an invitation out there to 6 or 7 people that you're really wanting to get to know deeper in this
Yeah.
season? Someone has to do it. And if that's something that's your heart's cry, then most of the time you have to take the step forward to do it.
Yeah. No, that's really, really good. So it's basically taking one small step, right? And just kind of seeing where it goes.
Yeah.
And that's really good. I interviewed Matthew Backus. Do you remember
Yeah.
him from
Uh-huh.
Expression?
Yeah.
And we talked about social media a little bit. And one thing he said was, well, social media, it affects, period. It just affects things like good, bad, otherwise. And the reality is, it's like a lot of times social media isn't actually social. And so I think our whole culture is grappling with it. And it's like we know it, but we still want to shoot it up. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, I don't know how to say it really is a drug. Like it's
Yeah.
like,
$1,000%.
and I do really admire people who can treat it like it's what it is, a fun thing, a game, and people who are contributing, not just scrolling.
Yeah.
It's fun, but also it's this weird facade of being and
Yeah.
not our real everyday life. And so it is very tricky.
Yeah, especially as we grasp with the world of AI that's becoming more prevalent in everyday
Yeah.
society and
Yeah.
people are leveraging tools like that, like
Mhm.
it's even more important that we're making room for human connection and
Mhm.
spaces so that you're critically thinking,
I
using
know.
your discernment.
I'm really, really nervous that we're all gonna wake up one day and our entire brain is gray matter rather than like I'm like I've had these moments where I'm like, I don't know, like, does my brain still work? I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Well, this is a little bit of a gear shift if you're okay with that.
Yeah, please.
I would love to hear, like, for me, you carry the DNA of a community builder, but you didn't just arrive there, right? You talk about being raised by a single mom and how you realized it took a village to be raised. And I'm just curious if you could kind of talk a little bit more about your background, your upbringing, and how that prepared you to really reach for community and fight for it. I know that you said like it came out of like you were trying to make friends, you were lonely in different cities, but there was something like a foundation beneath that, and I'm curious, um,
Yeah.
whatever comes to mind.
Well, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier of that your greatest gifting comes out of your greatest pain.
Mm,
And I think for me, I was raised by a single parent, raised by my grandmother, actually. So I was raised by an entirely different generation.
mm-hmm,
And no matter how strong of a family system I did have, there always felt like the lacking of what a natural family system looks like of a mom, dad, siblings, like aunts, uncles, cousins. I didn't have any of that.
mm-hmm,
I have like second cousins, great uncles, like
mm-hmm,
by extension, but we didn't grow up going to family reunions and things like that. And so I always felt like there was just that kind of missing puzzle piece. And it wasn't until I started building community that the puzzle pieces started to come together
mm,
because then you realize and have this greater capacity and understanding for what I didn't have, but what I did have. And
sure.
then realizing, oh my gosh, really what the Lord was doing was knitting all these pieces together to create this piece. And I think because of having an intimate understanding of not fully feeling like I belonged or
Mm-hmm,
whatnot, and that is through different scenarios, like not only being raised by a grandma, but also growing up as the chubby kid or, things like that where you just feel like you haven't been fully accepted in some way or
sure.
another. And I think even in it's funny because people say, "Oh, you're so courageous in building community," and I'm like, actually, I'm the biggest chicken in the world, but it's because I don't want to put myself out there. I
Okay.
just make people come to me.
But you are putting yourself out there by asking them to come to you.
I know. It's reverse psychology.
It's
Like
amazing.
I tricked myself into it,
Yeah.
type thing because you're just so afraid of rejection or pieces of like that. And so I think really it's just an intimate understanding of the areas that have maybe been more painful or where you have felt not fully understood or actually some of your greatest giftings. And oftentimes that could look like in a community building capacity or whatever you're feeling called to pursue.
Hmm. Sure. No, that's really good. My grandma didn't have any siblings, but she has dozens and dozens of grandchildren now. And I think I've learned a lot about friendship through her. And I think it's because she really had to figure it out in a different way
Yeah.
than we have to when someone has a bunch of siblings.
Yes.
And so I think that's really insightful.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you could name a couple things that you learned from growing up with your grandma. I would just love to honor her for a
Yeah.
minute.
I mean, she's my favorite person in the whole world. And yeah, it's it's interesting because we went through a period probably when I like 13 to 18 where we wanted to rip each other's hair out. And then
I
all of a sudden
mean, sounds like normal.
exactly, you know. But yeah, it's interesting because I feel like being raised by her and being raised by different generations allowed me to connect with so many different people.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, she was an entrepreneur and she had a really cute women's boutique in downtown San Diego. And
Cute.
I was the 8-year-old at the cash register. Very precocious of like, welcome to this high-end boutique, you know.
That's
And
so fun.
yeah, she'd take me to the garment district, take me out of school for the day, and we'd go shopping for the store. And so it was just a really fun upbringing, you know, that I feel like probably added to the well-roundedness of just being able to connect with so many different people and especially older people. I remember my grandma, like, we'd be at Costco and we'd run into a friend of mine and she'd be like, they're so rude. They didn't say hello. And I was like, raised by my grandma, so I was always taught to say hello, you know,
Right.
if you see your friend's parents out in the wild, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just being raised by a different generation. I think that gives you a whole different appreciation for that. And then she was always so creative and it's like even as a single person, I'm always like, what am I going to make for dinner tonight? And I feel like she always made nothing into everything, you know? And I'm like, I don't know how she did it, but she did it. So it's those things that I always carry with me. And it's fun because we're actually building an olive oil company in Italy right now because she just kind of
With
had,
her?
yeah,
Yes, I love that.
just kind of had the idea of so I'll say it really quickly. So in COVID,
You don't have to go quick. Like, it's
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
My grandma had kind of a hair up her butt of like wanting to figure out what the whole penny house thing was in Europe.
Mhm.
And so she started researching it and then realized that maybe that wasn't the best route, but if you buy a ruin, and you could like for a low amount of dollars and renovate it, that it's almost a better scenario. So she actually led the way of buying something in 2020 in Italy and they weren't allowing people to go to Italy unless you had business. And this was probably early 2021 now. And so she bought a place and was able to go over to Italy. And that's where my grandfather was from and
Okay.
whatnot. So I'm Sicilian by heritage. And all of a sudden she's like, Tiff, you know, there's this tiny apartment that's for sale. You should consider buying it. So then I bought a place there. And I always tell people, I promise it's not a baller move. I'm like, if you save up rent in San Diego for a year, you too could buy something in Italy. And now I rent it out as an Airbnb. But the house she bought came with 50 olive trees. And so we got to make our first batch of olive oil. And then she decided there's a couple of other farm land of olive trees. And so she bought up two more. So now we have 100 something olive trees. And we're now trying to figure out the import export fun stuff, but we're the olive oil supplier in our village.
That's so
Yeah, in
fun. Okay,
Italy.
so is
So
your grandma living there full time or she's splitting time as
no,
well?
she's there full time. So that's why I'm there so often now,
Okay.
besides leading retreats. But it also just made sense because I think people were always like, "You're always in Italy," and I'm like, well, first of all, it's done wonders for my soul. Two, now if you want to come with me, you can start to see my life there.
Right.
And why I would suggest going to the rural parts of Italy versus going to Rome or Milan or
Mhm.
they're all beautiful, but you're not
Right.
experiencing the true Italia. Um,
That's awesome.
so yeah, so that's where we're at. So she's a really fun person. I don't think she can help but not be an entrepreneur. And I ran away from that for so long because it also came with some inconsistency growing up of like
Sure.
stability and things like that. And I was like,
Sure.
no, I'm a corporate girl. So it's been really interesting, I think, in my faith walk. and also in grasping in it as I've been in my own entrepreneur journey over the last 5 years. So yeah, it's been a really fun experience for sure.
I love that. I didn't know the backstory. I knew that you bought a place in Italy and you were doing retreat stuff, but I really love that your grandma's there and that
Yes.
you are doing oil. That's amazing.
Yes.
So with this newest chapter of your life, the Italia chapter, let's say, I have some Italian in me, not much, but my grandmother's husband, my step grandfather, was full Italian.
Oh, love it.
And you know that when you're around Italian, everyone's an Italian,
Yes,
right?
of course.
So I grew up thinking like I was so Italian, right?
Of
So it's just
course.
like funny, but people ask me, like, are you Italian? And I'm like,
Yeah, a
just like a
little. Poco,
smidge.
poco.
But I will say, yeah. Okay, all that to say, I'm curious how you feel stepping into a new season, stepping into a deeper part of your heritage too.
Yeah, definitely. I think my message in this season is a little bit on the both and.
Okay.
And I think that again, we tend to put ourselves into these boxes and not really give ourselves permission to what it looks like. And I remember going down on the train the first time to Italy, and I like really felt like the Lord was speaking to my heart and just like this is infinitely more than you could think, dream, or imagine. I think we throw that around a lot of times, but I feel like if we were looking at things in a different perspective, oftentimes you realize that you're walking in something that it is more than I thought could dream or
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
And even if it didn't look like the life that you prescribed to or what you thought life would look like, and I think as I've been doing a little bit of this both and dance, it's funny because I can tell that people are wrapping their minds around it. I too am wrapping my mind around it as well. But I feel like the more and more I do it, it's like I'm carrying something that's giving people permission as well to do the both and.
Mm.
And I think, like I was saying earlier in this call, like I left corporate and went into ministry, and then I went into entrepreneurship. And it's like, again, we just kind of feel like it looks like this one road that's linear. And when the
Sure.
truth of the fact is, it isn't.
Hmm.
And so I think, if anything, I think what is working through my own heart and even in connecting with my heritage and creating space for that is that that's just what's happening, you know. And it's interesting because work really hard when I'm here. I don't stop working. I do have a tendency of working a lot.
Okay.
That's saying it lightly. And so I love in the kindness, it wasn't even in my grid, but going to Italy is like these sabbaticals that I have planned every quarter that
Oh,
just
good.
allow me to stop and have some white space to dream about that next season. And I can't even work if I try. I
Hmm.
bring my laptop. I do everything. I try to set it up in the piazza, in the middle of the piazza, and the Italians look at me like, "What are you doing, girl?" Like, they're like, "You work too hard, you know?" And I can't. I try. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get all this stuff done when I'm in Italy." I get nothing done. I can't move. It completely demobilizes me. And it's, I guess, why I'm so passionate about bringing people there now too, because I want people to experience the pause of
Mhm.
of it. And it's like I had some friends come with me in April, and I felt bad because, you know, sometimes you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's their first time to Italy," and you want to plan all these extravagant things and
Sure.
take them to the Vatican. But no, I'm taking you to a tiny town to watch nonos play chess in the piazza. And you just look around and you're like, what am I living life for? And two, like all these things that I thought mattered, you realize in true Italia culture, it's faith, family, and fun. It's
Mm.
actually the greatest insult to them to offer them more money to finish a renovation project.
Mm.
It's not a driver for them. And so it's like, I think we can learn so much that we've been perpetually driven through in our culture, whether we know it or not.
Sure.
Um, and why I love traveling so much because I just think it opens up our horizons
Mm.
to think differently and realize it creates enough pause in our spirit to know how else can I be looking at this and where
Sure.
do I need to adjust when I get back
Right.
home.
It's like pulling yourself out of your context automatically. You're off kilter enough that you can see differently,
And
right? In a good way.
yeah.
I love that you said you can't pay them more to speed up. So basically what you're saying is if you have someone, you've hired them and you're like, I'd like this to go faster. Here's an extra money. They're like, no, thanks.
No,
I'm gonna go take my
he'll go
like,
slower.
yeah. You're like, that's what you thought.
Yeah, because everything's an art form to them, you
Mhm.
know? And it's almost like you think that I'm not already working hard or as fast as I can in creating something. And you look at the houses there that have been there since the 1600. I mean, one of our retreats, we stay in a castle that's been there since 1100. You know, it's all preserved over time. And you look at houses that pop up here in the US and you're like, they're not built to last through centuries and things like that. So of course your renovation isn't going to take that short of a time either, you know? So
Right, right.
yeah, I think
Mm.
it's a good pause for all of us.
Mhm. No, that's good. I love that you say you can't get any work done. And part of it is because you've found a place where your soul can come to rest, right?
Exactly.
The last few years, I've tried to do whether it be a half day or a 1 or 2 day retreat once a quarter. And so sometimes that's like I'm going backpacking. I have no cell service. Even though my body is doing a lot of work, my mind and my spirit and my soul are not being bombarded by this thing, right? Or there's a retreat center down in San Diego near you that I go to once a year. And the second I get in my car to drive there, I feel this like let go. Like my whole body just kind of knows what's about to happen. And it's because you've created this rhythm, right? Where you get to Italy, you get off the plane and it's like I'm
I,
here.
yeah, immediately.
And it's really a beautiful thing and I think a very needed thing and I think an underrated thing in our
Yeah,
culture. We don't fully appreciate how much noise there is, how much input we have. We know it, but until we start to unplug a little bit, we don't really experience the quiet or and that's uncomfortable at first because it's
it
like,
is.
what do I do? But I think once you familiarize yourself with the uncomfortableness of it, it's like, okay,
Uh,
here we go,
best.
So exactly, exactly. So I love that. I love that. May Italy always be a place of low productivity for you.
Yeah, amen to
Oh,
that.
that's so good. So then what makes you most excited about bringing people into that retreat? How is that different for you than Gals That Brunch? What's been different for Katie?
Yeah, I think so we had talked a little bit about this before we started the call, but when I moved back from LA, um, especially during COVID years back to San Diego, I just felt like my soul was like in pieces, like
Yeah.
of grasping like what the heck just happened in that season of life and what am
Mhm.
I doing next and all the things. And I remember the first time I went back to Italy. I'd been there 10 years before that for one of my best friend's weddings.
Mhm.
Um, but it was just this place where all of a sudden it was just like slowly picking back up the pieces and putting it together. And we're in this town of 1,200 people in Calabria, which most people have never heard of. They don't
Nope.
speak a lick of English. I'm learning Italian. And the immediate level of care that they have
Mhm.
for each
Wow.
other, for their neighbors, for us as outsiders. My grandpa passed away after a year of hospice,
Oh my
which is like
gosh.
not for the faint of heart. Me and my
No.
grandma arrived, and I was bringing my grandma over there to be there full time now. And she had lived in her house in La Jolla for 18 years. And, we had ambulances and hospice there every other day.
Wow.
And not one person came by to say, we're so sorry to hear about your husband's passing or things like that.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
always bawl my eyes out because the moment that we stepped in our foot into Italy, they had rung the church bells for him. They had put up signage of honoring his life. And then every single one of our neighbors dropped off bread and cake.
Wow.
And we would be walking up to the piazza, and people would pull over their car, run out of their car to give us hugs and just be like, "Your family here. We're your
Aw.
family now." And it's just like, that place isn't replicatable, isn't something like, it's just because of who they are, who their
Yeah.
culture is, and it just wrecks you. It completely wrecks you. And
Mhm.
um I was just like, I want other people to experience this too. And I
Yeah.
think it challenges a lot of things because again, we're built in an American culture where you have two
Mhm.
weeks of vacation time.
Yeah.
And I did this the first time I went over to Italy. I did a week in Sicily, and then I did 2 days in Rome, and 2 days in Milan, and 2 days in
Sure.
Florence, 2 days in
Yeah.
Paris, two
Yeah.
days in England, because I was like,
Yeah.
I got 14 days. I
Yeah.
gotta soak it up. But
Do
then
it all.
you don't allow the
Yeah.
culture to actually permeate you. And so I'm really passionate about talking about slow travel
Mhm.
now, and the cultures of inheritance of each place that you go to. And in Italy in particular, you can't help but think about the biblical context, the artists,
Mhm.
the people that have built these like ancient ruins that have lasted throughout time. And you can't help but just be wrecked by it if you allow the atmosphere to actually permeate you and not be so focused on a tourism schedule that's been mass produced to take people
Right.
through systems that you don't even know that you're part of. It's
Right.
like break the systems, you know, and doing that. I'm very, very passionate about it now, because or else you won't experience things like that. And that's like
Mhm.
that's the beauty of it. That Italy doesn't even know that she does it, but she just does it, you know, and
Wow.
you have to allow yourself to be affected by it.
That's amazing. Um, so beautiful. I am sorry to hear about your grandpa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was whew. Yeah.
So you guys were going back and forth before he passed.
Mhm.
Okay. So they
Yeah.
knew him, and that's
Yes.
that is a very telling parable, basically.
Yes.
Wow, wow, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Break the systems. That might be the title of your episode. Break the systems. That's so beautiful. So you love bringing people into this place where they get to slow down, where they get to experience Italy, they get to experience the gift. It's kind of like we were talking earlier about how each person that comes to the table brings this gift, and each place that you get to visit and experience also has a gift to give you, right? I love that you are getting to give the gift of Italy to those in your life, right? That's very, very beautiful.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people in my small town, they don't get why we come there.
Okay. Yeah.
'Cause
They're like, this is who we are. Like, what are you
yeah,
saying? Yeah,
you're from San Diego. We want to go to San Diego, you
yeah.
know, like type
Yeah.
thing. But it's so great. This is my fourth year bringing people in and seeing the dignity that happens when they realize what they're
Wow.
carrying, and they didn't realize it. Like they
Mm.
don't realize, like, oh my gosh, like
You mean
these
the Italians?
the Italians.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
they're like, wow, like people want to come watch us and our gifting, you know,
Yeah,
like.
that's awesome.
And so you just feel like you see them getting back their inherent worth
Hmm.
in it as well. And so it's like the great exchange, right? You know, like
Hmm.
the things that we don't think about in that, but it makes it all that much more worthwhile when you pay enough attention to it, you know?
Yeah, that's really, really beautiful. You've built so many beautiful things. And so as I was going through and reading up on some of your stuff, at one point you used the phrase everything happens in community. I think it was on your website about like coaching entrepreneurs. And I'm curious if you could just say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're hardwired and designed for it. I can read off and spat every scientific fact of that you live longer in community, being in
Sure.
community is
Yeah.
worth, you know, all the things like that. So we're literally biologically, neurologically, spiritually, everything is woven to be in community. And yet in society, we live oftentimes very disjointed from the very thing that allows us to propel in thriving versus surviving.
Sure.
Because we have gone into a little bit more of like the individualism and all those different pieces
Hmm.
within it. And so I think if we started to question a little bit of the rhythms that we've created around ourselves and really took in the inventory of invitation of
Yeah.
inviting, like, what does it look like to thrive in this season? What does it look like to do community in this season, and start making it part of the rhythms that you have? I think you'll realize how much of it is. And I think my favorite thing to think about in community is, like, I even remember when Gals at Brunch first started, I think I ended up hiring at least 20 girls from Gals at Brunch in my office. I was in higher ed at that point, and I was like, hey, we're hiring at that time, you know, and you bring
That's
in people,
awesome.
and then all of a sudden we're working together. And then all of a sudden people start getting married and
Hmm.
whatnot and having babies. And, you know, like I love seeing all the bridesmaids that have come out of GTB and them
Yeah.
raising babies together. And I just met a girl at trivia this week, and she goes, oh my gosh, I met one of my best friends 6 months ago at your winery event. Our husbands are best friends. They go golfing together now. And again, it's just like those
Mhm.
are the possibilities that happen when you start to infiltrate your life with community, but you kind of have to allow community to infiltrate the life that you've built around yourself?
It's true. We have to allow a little bit of interruption, right? We can get
Exactly.
so like set in our routines and so set in these are the things that I do. And I think sometimes we just need to allow a little interruption. Maybe it's just
Yeah.
1 hour a week that's a little different than your normal life, you know?
Yeah. We've made it okay to not have those interactions and whatnot, and it's not okay.
We've made it okay, but it's not okay.
It's not
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
So I think we have to do some rewiring,
Hmm.
around that because, yeah, we're
Hmm.
we we're desperate for it as a society.
Hmm.
Um, Doing your one thing once a week of, I don't know, whatever you do, go to church and then you run out the door 5 minutes later to go home, you actually have to
Yeah.
stay
Right.
in community, become
Yeah.
known in community, be loved by community, all the
Mhm.
things.
And can we talk about the donut table at church or the coffee table at church where it's like, I can't tell you how many times at the donut table and I'm like, I will just stand here long enough to talk to somebody. It's like it takes some grit sometimes.
Oh,
So I understand why people are like, all right, I'm out. Peace.
yeah.
Because it takes some grit to just kind of stand there. And
Oh, it
um,
does.
unfortunately, church is sometimes the place where it's just the hardest. And so, um, yeah.
So I was coaching my best friend. She moved to Nashville and
Hmm.
she had never gone to a new church before.
Oh,
Like it
okay.
was like she grew up her same family church in LA
Yeah.
and she moved to Nashville. And I was like, okay, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna stand in the lobby for 15 minutes. I don't care if it's so awkward. You're not gonna go hide in the bathroom. You're not
You're not
you
gonna look
just
at your
stand
phone.
there and you wait till someone comes and talks to you.
Did it happen? Did someone come and
It
talk to
did,
them?
it did,
Okay,
it
good,
did,
good.
yeah, but it's like you just have to get over yourself enough to just be willing to sit through the awkwardness. Awkward is part of the human condition. We try to avoid it, but
It is part of the human condition.
we're
It
all
does feel a
awkward.
little bit like you're standing there. It's very vulnerable. It's
It's
almost
very
like you're like,
vulnerable.
okay, here I am in the foyer, and would someone please talk to me? I don't know. Maybe if I look a little more distressed, but do I want to look? No, I'm cool. Everything's cool. Like, that's
Isn't that
awesome.
so funny?
It is so funny. Well, one more question for you, and then anything else you want to share. I
Yeah.
am so grateful for the place this conversation has gone and the wealth of information and lived experience you carry. It's very clear that you haven't just been like you could have started Gals That Brunch. It could have blown up the way that it did, right? Like 1,200 people in 1 month. And you could have just been like, that's cool. But instead, I feel like you doubled down. You're like, why? You've been asking the question, why? Why is community so important? Why did this hit such a nerve? What can I do to give more people this experience? How can I eradicate loneliness? How can I bring people into Italia? Like, how can I like do all you've kind of doubled down and you're like, no, I'm gonna pull this thread as far as I can pull it. I really sense that and see that about you, which is so wonderful. And so I just want to commend you for that because it is definitely, I'm sure there were many times where you're like, why am I doing this? What's going on? But you pulling the thread
Yes.
and you're giving such a gift to people. And so I just want to say thank you for that and for the well that you've dug and how we get to drink from it now. I really appreciate that. Grateful. And I always ask everyone this last question. What does
Mm.
community mean to you? And you've answered it in 25 different ways already, but succinctly, like what does community mean to you?
Um, yeah, I feel like community reveals the greatest gift that is you. And
Mm,
if I had any one message, it would be around that you are the gift.
wow.
So yeah, I feel like if people wrap their minds around that within the community revelation, it would change a lot of things. So
Wow, that's beautiful. I'm gonna take my Excel like I'm going on retreat. And now I suddenly want to buy an apartment in Italy, like no
exactly.
problem.
Break the systems.
Break it. Oh, amazing. All right. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
going to end the recording now so we can like properly wrap up. But that's not for our whole audience. So anyway, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having a conversation with you.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Life with People podcast. If I had to pick one thing from this episode to emphasize, well, okay, I'll take two. I'll pick two, okay? The first would be that you are a gift. You, just as you are right now, are a gift to those around you. So don't hold back. Don't edit yourself. Just present yourself to those around you as the gift that you are. The second would be that you got to do the reps. We all kind of know what we need to do to connect with those in our lives. We aren't doing the reps. We're not working it out. So be the gift you are, do the reps, don't give up, get that muscle memory, and keep going. You've got this. See you guys next time.